What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's happening with the economic calendar going into tomorrow, what's happening with some earnings that just came out, and what I think might end up playing out on the charts going into tomorrow. But before I break the doubles information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, on SPY, we're seeing some very, very interesting price action. So for today, what happened was SPY started off down here. We got this nice pump after some economic data came out, and also in anticipation of Jerome Powell's speech. So we got this very, very nice pump on SPY from this 517 area all the way up to the 521 zone. Nice 4-point pump. And then what happened was we traded sideways for almost the entire day. Then at the very end of the day, the last 2 hours, we saw this big dump all the way back to 517. Then we pumped back up at the very, very last minutes. And you can see right here, it was like a pump and dump move. And even in the after hours, we're pushing back up again, and we're very, very close to 520. This tells us that the bulls do have the majority of the control, because every time SPY dipped, we saw buyers step in and defend it. And we also have an uptrend that's been respected so far. So SPY is favoring bulls somewhat more. But the question is, what's going to happen moving forward? Is SPY going to push up more? Are we about to see a big rug pull? What levels should we be watching for just to be safe? And what do I think is going to pan out for tomorrow, in my personal opinion? So I'm going to break down some information about the markets real quick. So as you guys know, Jerome Powell had a speech today. He didn't really say a whole lot. He did say one thing that kind of changed his tone, as he was saying that the Fed has to wait for more data to determine if they're going to cut rates or not. So they're still waiting for more data to come out. He still anticipates the Fed will cut rates later on this year. I personally think that they're not going to cut rates like for the short term. I think that the rate cuts may come later on for the year as we approach September and beyond. So it may take many, many months until we're officially there, because of what we're seeing with inflation and crude prices right now, in my opinion. But Powell was also optimistic, saying that there's a lot of improvements being made, but the Fed has to continue to monitor the situation. He also used the word bumpy to describe the path to that 2% inflation target. That's a real possibility. He said things could get kind of bumpy, so be very careful. That could be part of why the market saw a very, very nuanced reaction. But with him being done now, we have other things that will affect us. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday, April 4th, 2024. Please note that 1 hour before the market opens, we have the exports and imports data coming out. Then we also have initial jobless claims, which might cause some volatility. Then don't forget that after all this data comes out an hour before market open, I think the jobs numbers are going to be quite important, especially for the Fed's policies. Then we have at 11:30 a.m. the 4-week and 8-week bill auctions, not to mention more mortgage rates. Then starting at noon, it's just a bunch of Fed speakers again, from Bargan to Mester and Kugler, and the list goes on. So lots of Fed speakers starting at noon. Some bill auction data a little bit before that. And then besides that, it's just data that comes out before the market opens. That is going to be very, very key for tomorrow. Now, for earnings, we just had Levi's announce their earnings. Everything else is quite minor, in my opinion. Even Levi's is not that significant, but I just want to note they did relatively well, so that was interesting to see. They beat on EPS in revenue slightly, and the thing that was quite good is the fact that their e-commerce sales are actually going up quite a bit, and their guidance for the full year is to be expected for 1 to 3% growth. So that's why the share price is up quite a bit right now. Not bad whatsoever. For other things about the markets, we also have the fear and greed index, kind of stuck between greed and not too far from neutral right now, but we're still in a very, very interesting place. We will see if this actually increases this way, if the market does push a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Market momentum is still greedy. Other things are still on extreme greed. But the two important things I watch for are puts and call options positioning and also market volatility. So with puts and call option positioning, we're actually seeing this going up a little bit. We're seeing a little bit more puts being bought again. We'll see if this causes any more shifts. And then on top of this, market volatility, the VIX is starting to get a small rejection off the resistance, coming down just a bit. If the VIX falls more to fill its gap, this could be a sign that the market's going to bounce a bit. So we'll wait and see if that ends up being the case. And on top of all of this, for the options chain for tomorrow, we have max pain at 520, a 0.68 put to call ratio, but very few options expiring, so it might not really affect us as much. What do I see on the charts, though? What is my prediction? So I want to talk about the charts from this point on. Let me just say that right now, things are very interesting for SPY. There's a slight uptrend right here, and we also have this resistance at this 521 area. This was the previous support becoming resistance. If we do break through this, we could easily see this thing fill the gap all the way up to 522, and then 524 becomes a possibility if we break that. What do I think SPY is going to do? Honestly, guys, here's how you want to look at SPY. It's very simple, actually. So you want to be looking at our hourly time frame, or other time frames could work as well. But in this case, watch and see if we kind of see a move like this. So if you're bearish, you want to see this thing lose this 519 area, lose 519 and start sinking like this. If we lose 519, that's going to be a sign of weakness and we can start sinking. If we make a move where we come down fast, we want to quickly be bought back up within an hour for us to remain in this trend. If we get an hourly close below this white trend line, that would turn a little bit more bearish to me. So this is like the more bearish case, by the way. Okay, I'm going to go over the bearish case, the bullish case, and what I think is more likely, in my opinion, in just a minute. The bullish case would be we kind of pull back like this and just start pushing, and we just continue to respect this uptrend and just keep going higher. That's like a lot more of a bullish case. So I do think that that's what is looking a lot more favorable right now, looking at the current trend. So what I think is going to likely happen is, however we move is going to depend a lot on initial jobless claims, but we could see a little dip in the pre-market to retest the trend line, then a bounce. And I just want to note that this wick right here is actually kind of interesting, because the last time we saw a wick like that, let me show you what happened to the charts. Back on March 13th, there was a time when SPY actually got a wick, and then this led to a move to the upside. So this, we saw a similar move on March 13th where we wicked down and got bought back up at the last minute. And that led to a big push. We actually pushed up very nicely all the way up and gapped up. So there's a very good chance that SPY might actually do something similar and try to push higher again. And that could have just been a liquidity grab, if anything. So I'm thinking that what's going to happen is we either come down a little bit here, fill we don't fill a gap. We test this trend line of support close to this 519.5 area. Then we start pushing up higher, and we might try to test 521 again. We'll see if that breaks or not. If we do break it, we could go even higher. If we fail to break it, then it is what it is. But if we break it, 522 could be coming. So I think the most likely possibility is we either dip a little bit and then try to bounce higher, or we just push from here and retest 521, if not 522 if that breaks. So I do favor a little bounce and an uptrend to be respected on SPY. The chart is still favoring bulls a bit, and with this long wick right here, which got bought up by buyers, shows that buyers have control. For the QQQ, it's the same thing. Now we have this resistance at 442.68. If we break through that, watch 444. And if that breaks, there's 446 coming, right? So we have some nice resistance levels to just be watching out for. For support, if we end up losing 442, we're going to be coming all the way down towards 440 flat. If that fails, let's watch 438. Overall, we're on a bit of an uptrend right now, so we're looking like we're showing more signs of life. And I think that we could continue to push. So my prediction is, as we have an uptrend being respected, there's this nice wick that formed on the QQQ. We could come down a bit and retest this 20 EMA, if not a little bit lower, around 441.8, and then bounce and start pushing for 444 again. Or we could just bounce from here and start pushing up to fill this gap all the way up to 445. I do anticipate it's going to actually push a little bit more. We have a nice uptrend being respected, so the chart does favor the bulls somewhat more. For Tesla, the chart is showing some life because two things. Number one, this market structure is shifting. You could see that we had this low here at 162. We came up, then we came down to about 163.8 or 163.25, excuse me, and then we got a nice bounce. So this shows that Tesla made a higher low. And the second thing is we closed above 168, which is a sign of strength. So Tesla is showing some life now and might actually try to push for at least 170. If that breaks, we break 170 to 170.5. Look for a move all the way up to the imbalance at 172.75. Very close to 173 is coming next if we end up breaking 170 and close above that or hold above that. So I think Tesla is showing some strength, at least from a technical basis. Just know, guys, that there's a lot of news coming out for Tesla that could impact it. So keep that in the back of your mind. But just know from a technical standpoint, Tesla's looking a little bit more in favor of the bulls. For Apple stock, Apple is looking a little decent right now, not as great as it could have been. I would have liked to close above 170. So we have resistance at 170 and then 170 point. There's 170.6 and 170.9, very tight levels. We have support at 169, followed by 160, 168, that zone down there. So I think that this chart might actually decline a little bit, grab liquidity at either 169 or maybe a little bit higher, then try to bounce and start pushing back up to the 170s. I do believe that there is potential in this, and this could be forming kind of like an inverse head and shoulders. But it might come down first, and we need to try to get a break above 170.6 again, break the high here for us to fill this imbalance up here at 171.5. So I think that there's potential in this. It might come down first and bounce, but watch for that. We need to get a confirmation bounce, Apple has some potential, but it's not entirely there yet. So it needs more time. For Nvda, I want to call out something on Nvidia. Nvidia has this head and shoulders like structure. The trend has been a bit more bearish on Nvidia so far, but this could change. This could change a bit. But for now, we're just going to kind of assume that the trend remains. So Nvidia is showing a little bit of weakness. It is on a bit of a decline overall. But here's what could end up happening. So just because we're on a downtrend, it does not mean we're going to be red every day. We could still get some green. We could still see some moves to the upside beforehand. We had this low here for the last 1.5 days. We are slowly uptrending on Nvidia. So I think that what could happen is we could see Nvidia grab more liquidity at 885, and we could see a technical bounce from there and a break of our resistance at 892 and a push back up to 900. And we'll see if 900 could break because that's a very, very tough resistance. We want to close above 900 to get a push for 908. If we fail to do so, it's not going to be the best. My gut tells me it'll come down a bit and try pushing back up into this shop zone. Nvidia loves to be stuck between 908 and 892, so I think that it might come down a bit and then push back up. I think that's the most likely possibility with this move to the downside. So look for a move back up towards 900, and it might just chop around there. So that is it for the main five I typically go over. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of others. So we're going to start off with Palantir. Palantir is showing a little bit of weakness, considering the fact that it's a little bit on a downtrend right here, but there is a possible inverse head and shoulders that could help this thing bounce. If we get a break above 23, look for a push for about 23.75 and eventually 24. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 21.8. If we lose that, a bigger drop is coming. With this inverse head and shoulders like structure, this could try to bounce. So we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being the case. But I'd rather give this some time just to see what the confirmation move is. For Super Micro, we have resistance around 1020 and then 1050. We have support around 980 and 1000. In my opinion, this is showing a little bit of potential to try to rebound just a bit. I do see some potential for that, but we need to give this a little bit more time. I think that with this potential that's developing on the chart, we could be looking for a big change in its structure, but we have to give this a little bit more time for this to really play out. So I think that, in my opinion, there is potential for Supermicro to try to push a little higher. We need to give this some time. Might try to push to 1050. It might be a little tight, but I do see some potential there. For Rivian, looking a little bit weak right now, unfortunately. It's kind of choppy right now, so it might remain in this chop zone coming back down to 10.48. Not looking the best. We talked about a little push that should be coming to SoFi, that maybe a move back down. Instead, it kept going, so now it's showing some strength. Watch resistance at this 7.5 area. If we break this, we're going to be pushing for 7.76. If we reject, we come back down to 7.35. As of right now, it's showing a little bit of strength, so it might try to push a little higher, back up to 7.76. Jerome Powell could have been one of the reasons why this pumped the way it did. AMD showing some life. We have resistance at 182.39. We have support at 177.68. We're stuck in the middle. Whichever way we break will determine the bigger move. But I'm seeing some potential for this to turn bullish. If we break 182.39, look for a push all the way back up to high levels like 187. So I do see some potential in AMD, especially as we have a double bottom like structure. We also have a potential. You can also argue this is like an inverse head and shoulders, and also this imbalance over here is looking pretty good. But watch and see if we break 182.39. If we break that, we could push higher. We need to wait for more time, but I am seeing some potential in the chart. ARM is showing a little bit of potential. We could be pushing up towards what is this, 126.25 to 126.5. I could see a test of that. If that breaks, watch 128.69. Maybe kind of slow as it's pretty flat, but I do see a little bit of potential right over there. For Coinbase, this is looking like it's trying to push higher, but we have some tight resistance between 152.2 and 153.43. So it could push a little bit higher. It is possible, but don't forget that this thing also happens to have a head and shoulders like structure. There's a left shoulder here, a head, and a right shoulder. So it could continue to downtrend overall, but it might pop first and then come down later. So it does have potential to push a little higher if we could test 253. I think it might get very close to that area, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not. If it breaks through this, we could be pushing all the way up to about 262. If we reject, we're going to be pushing a bit and then come back down, all the way down into like the 240 area. So watch and see what happens with Coinbase. For Amazon's on a bit of an uptrend right over here, continuing to make higher highs and higher lows. We got a very strong close to watch 183 as resistance. If we break through this, we could come down a bit and then start pushing up for 184. I see potential in Amazon to push higher. For Meta, we're also showing some strength right here. Going to be looking for a move for 510. We'll see how it reacts right here since we have some tough resistance. If we get like a little rejection, we could come down a bit off 510, then start pushing again towards 515. So I do see some potential for that. For Microsoft, we're kind of flat right now. We have resistance around 422. We have support around, let me double check this. Support is going to be around this 420 area. We're kind of stuck and very choppy right now, but I could see this attempt to get up to about 422 and maybe push a little higher. It's kind of stuck, so we'll just have to give it some time. For Google, unfortunately, even though this thing pushed a bit, we got this nice little pop and drop like move, and we're still stuck within this range. So watch resistance around 156, watch support currently around 154, which is where our 20 EMA happens to be. I'm seeing a little bit of weakness with this bearish PPO crossover, so it might test 154. If we lose that, it's going to start declining a bit. If it holds, it might just remain in the range, so just be a little bit patient with it. The VIX is looking interesting to me because on the 4-hour time frame is starting to decline a bit. If it keeps declining, it could actually come all the way down to fill this gap, which means the market could get a bounce, possibly. But let me just note that even if that ends up being the case, the VIX also has key support coming up around this 12.4 area to 13. So even if it does kind of like decline a bit and come down to fill this gap and then bounce, this means the market may pump a bit and then dump later on. So the VIX is showing some weakness. The VIX looks like it might fall a little bit more, which tends to kind of like fuel that bullish narrative for the market, at least temporarily. So we'll see how it goes. The dollar getting rejection off 105 is also a sign of weakness. It looks like it's going to be heading towards 103.92, which means the market may see more upside. The dollar is looking kind of weak, so that is favoring the bulls. So for the markets, make sure you watch your supports just to be safe. Watch for confluences. And just know that right now, SPY is on a bit of an uptrend. SPY is uptrending right now. The market is on a slight uptrend. But watch your levels just to make sure we hold. And we'll see what happens tomorrow with all the data coming out. There is potential for the market to push higher. We also have a gap to fill on SPY above around the 522s. So we'll see if this thing gets a push. I do anticipate that. Might come down to grab this support right over here, trigger some stops right here first and then try to push, or it might just push from here. Either way, I do see some upside potential in SPY, but make sure you watch your chart just to be safe. Watch your confirmations based off this support. So I just want to say there's potential and we'll see how things go. All right, guys, that is it for the video. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. Don't forget about the data that's coming out in the morning. If you guys want to like look over it again, you guys could check all this data as well. I'll be back tomorrow morning to discuss what's happening with initial jobless claims, the exports and imports data, and all the other things like that. Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow before the market opens. Get ready for more data that's coming out. I hope you guys have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected no matter what happens. And I will see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you for listening. The market to the moon because the long term is very bright. And peace out.